You are welcome to Davetuts Academy, where we are devoted to building excellence in students, especially when it comes to the STEM subjects. Our video today is going to use a data-driven approach to drive students to academic excellence when it comes to the JAMB UTME Mathematics Exam paper. And what we are going to be doing is that we are going to be looking at the past question, and we are going to be adding it to the syllabus as highlighted by JAMB UTME. And these two, we are going to combine to look at the areas of concentrations that are being asked of students, that are expected of students to know when it comes to the JAMB UTME Mathematics Exam paper. Now, what we are going to be doing here today, you can also scale to your other subjects, okay? So take this lesson and go and apply them to all your other subjects, and let's see how you are going to drive this to make sure that academic excellence you are going to gain by the grace of God. So what are we going to be doing? We have already analyzed the past questions for the last decade from the JAMB UTME exam, and we have extrapolated it against the topics that JAMB is expecting you to prepare for in the mathematics exam, and that's featuring number and numeration, algebra, geometry and trigonometry, calculus, and statistics. So with all of these being married together, we want to see what is the trend of the questions that are being featured over the years. How can we use that to leverage and prepare for excellence in your own coming exam? And how can we see the sure bankers, the areas of concentrations that JAMB they normally bring out their question from? So I would like to solicit that you make sure that you watch to the end of this video, because we are going to be featuring histogram that's going to be a pictorial view of all of these with the most featured questions. Okay, it's going to feature the questions, the topic where the questions are most often coming out from, and then you are going to see that, okay, this is where I need to actually pitch my tent and focus and pay more attention. Okay, so that is that. And then don't be scared if you are going to be looking at a number of these and you're like, I'm not seen this before, I'm not prepared for this. There's no cause for alarm. Okay, we are only here to prep you for that excellence. And if you are going to be having any challenge in any one of them, we already have our playlist that is featuring a whole lot of videos from past exam paper from JAMB UTME that you can check in the link below. Okay, the link is in the description. Just check on them and you will have access to full 40 questions, 50 questions that are featured in JAMB, in which we walk you through question 1 to 40, question 1 to 50, so that you will see, okay, this is how to really go about solving these questions, and it will prep you for your excellence in your academic career. Now, if you are here and this is your first time of joining us, you are welcome. This is where we build excellence in students. We will just solicit that you go ahead and click on the subscription icon and also click on the notification bell so that you get feed of our video resources once we upload them. And then generally, we want to solicit, please go ahead and click on the like button if you are going to find this video useful, and we are sure that you will find this video useful. So click on the like button so that our algorithm will be improved, and we also get to feature this to so many students out there that are needing them. And if you have any question for us or any advice or any rebuke, just leave that in the comment section and we'll attend to every one of them. We read all of your comments, so we take note of them. We want to hear from you, get feedback from you, so that we know what we'll do best, or we improve upon, or what we need to stop doing. So with that being said, let's head over to our video for today. We're going to kickstart with number and numeration now. Okay, and in number and numeration, first you need to understand your number base as featured here, and you need to know how to convert from some other base to base 10, in which you multiply with that particular base and you increase the power from 0 to 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then again here you can increase the power from 0 to 1 so that you can convert to base 10. But if you want to convert from base 10 to base 2, you need to divide by that base that you want to convert to. Like here, 34 in base 10, you want to convert to base 2, then you need to divide by 2, which is the base. But then what to write out is the remainders. You can see these are the remainders, and you take it from bottom, you take it up. That is part of number base. Now the next topic in number and numeration involve fractions, decimals, approximations, percentages, profit and loss, shared and valued added task, ratio, proportion, and rate. And very, very important for you to solve this is BODMAS or PEMDAS. This is just bracket of division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. Or you can say parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Just showing you the order of operation of the normal mathematical processes so that you know the first thing to do when you're having a multiple of operations like in this particular question, okay? Then in fractions, you need to know how to round down or round up your figures, okay? If you have numbers from 0 to 4, you round them down to 0, whereas numbers from 5 to 9, you round them up to 1 and add to the number just prior to them. This can be featured in some expressions like this, and then you will know how to get your final answer. You also need to know your simple interest, principal times rate times time over 100, and then there are quick and mental tricks that you need to be able to express percentages. For example, you are being told 80% of x. Okay, it's just the same thing as you saying that the whole number 1 minus 0.02 multiplied by x, and you get that straight and direct. And then quite popular among the questions that JAMB normally sets is the laws of indices and the laws of logarithm. You need to know how to actually compute all of this, what to do with the powers, what to do with the bases if you are working with this. And then once in a while, they do bring out exponential equations and logarithmic equations, okay? This is a logarithmic equation here. This is an exponential equation here, in which most of the time, sometimes you just need to represent a variable with some other variable, and then you solve for p, and then revert back and solve for your final answer, okay? And in logarithm, you also need to know how to change base from when you're having indices, and then you can convert to logarithm, and these are going to help you in solving questions when it comes to your JAMB exam. Now, working with surd, you need to know how to rationalize surd, how to find the conjugate of a surd, which will be like in this case, the conjugate of root 5 minus root 3 is root 5 plus root 3. When you multiply these two together, eventually you're only going to have 5 minus 3 as the base, which is 2. So you need to know those tricks to actually express surds when you're working them. And then set featured a number of times in your exam, and you need to know how to interpret question on sets, and then how to find some unknowns. And then you also need to know how to identify areas that are shaded in your Venn diagram. Like in this particular case, you will be asked, okay, what is the region that's being shaded? You need to be able to extrapolate that and pick the correct option out of the ones that are available to you. Now, sometimes JAMB define your set linearly with expressions like this, in which you need to interpret this, that P is defined in X, so that X is odd, and then minus 1 is less than S, which is less than or equal to 20. Now, minus 1 being less than S means that minus 1 is not part of it. And if you are saying it is odd, then you need to pick the odd numbers from 0 to 20 in this particular expression. So you need to be able to find how to interpret that correctly. And then look at this. They also gave you that Q is prime, and Q is between minus 2 and 25 inclusive. Then you should be able to get those elements in Q and in P out. Then you can find the intersection as appropriate. Okay, so those are the topics that are featured under number and numeration. And once you are actually good with that, we can move to Algebra. Now, in Algebra, the very first topic that they are featuring is polynomials, in which they expect us to know change of structure of formula, multiplication and division of polynomials, factorization of polynomial of degree 3 and degree 2 and co. And in that case, you need to know your difference of two squares as featured here, okay? That a square minus b square is nothing but a plus b and a minus b. You will find it useful in solving some questions. And then if you can get to know the sum and the difference of two cubes as expressed here, that will also be very, very good and very, very interesting for you. So this can help you to find roots of quadratic equation when you are factorizing. Okay, then very interesting is the factor theorem and the remainder theorem. That, for example, if you have this type of polynomial, you can see it's of degree 3. Then if you are looking for one of its roots, you can use the factor theorem, and that means that if you take that particular factor, in this case, if it is x minus a, it's 0, then you can equate x to be equal to a such that the function of a, if you put the value for the expression of a into the equation, then it will be equal to 0. It being equal to 0 is actually the definition of the remainder theorem, because 0 here is a remainder. 0 means nothing. If there is a remainder, then it will be equal to that remainder. Okay, so this factor theorem and remainder theorem helps a lot when you are solving some polynomials and also even factoring them out, which feature from time to time on your questions, okay? And sometimes, okay, you are given questions in which you have to make another variable the subject of the formula. That will warrant that you need to rearrange and do the normal algebra processes multiply, divide, subtract, add until you make that new variable, q, until you make it the subject of the formula. Now, you need to be careful. There is a trend of question I'm seeing that you'll be given a quadratic expression and you'll be asked to make the variable the subject of the formula. This is not hard. Once you are seeing questions like this, all you need to recall is your quadratic equation in which you can use your formula method to solve. So here, just like you have x in the quadratic equation to be x equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Here, t, you can express like that. You just need to know the a, the b, and the c, and you can get the solution for that change of subject wonderfully. Okay, in talking about variations, you need to know your direct, your inverse, and your joint variation, okay? And sometimes partial variation too, in which you will be able to interpret the expression, which will be a word problem. You will be able to express it as a variation. Then you can introduce your constants. Then, like in this case, you can put in the values of those variables so that you get your constant, you get your equation, and then whatever is being asked afterward, you are good to go with them. Now, there's something with inequalities that I've noticed that students, they don't normally get, is that whenever you find your answer in inequalities, you need to always test, okay? And that inequalities doesn't necessarily need to be a linear expression. Sometimes you can be given a graph and you'll be asked to find the expression that graph is qualifying. Like in this particular case, you have this, you can see you have this quadratic graph, you have this straight line graph. You can be asked to find the shaded region in this particular diagram being featured in inequality. Already, you can get this as a means of your normal quadratic and linear equation, but now they can also ask in inequality. So you need to know how to represent this judiciously and correctly as appropriate, okay? And then progressions in which you can look at the arithmetic progression or the geometric progression. Now, there is a general formula for the nth term, for the sum, for both the arithmetic progression and the geometric progression. And what I need you to pay attention to is that for geometric progression, there are two different formulae here that you are going to be using, particularly as denoted your common ratio. When the common ratio is less than 1, this is the equation that you use. And when the common ratio is greater than 1, this is the equation that you use. However, whenever you are being asked to work with the sum to infinity, you have to make use of a over 1 minus r. And note that when you are working with that, your common ratio is between minus 1 and positive 1. Most of the time, it will lead to equations that you need to solve. Like in this particular case, you may be given two different terms that you can express. They can say the fourth term is 3, the 13th term is 39. Find the 7th term. For you to get the 7th term, you need to first look at the means of finding the first term, which is a, and the common difference. So if you express this general equation, you need to solve this simultaneously. You get your first term, get your common difference, and then use in the general formula for the nth term to find the 7th term. The same thing also applies with geometric progression, but what you will be doing here is that you will be dividing the two equations. Like here, you will see that the first term a and a will cut out, so r will be remaining, and then that r you can find is root to the nth power of this expression on the right hand side as appropriate. And these are tips that will help you to solve your progression problems correctly. Now, in binary operations, most of the time you are asked to find a particular operation or to find the identity element of a particular binary operation. All you just need to do is to follow the guide that x operating the identity element will give you x, then the identity element operating x will still give you x. So you can equate those two and you can find that particular identity element and solve your question as appropriate. Matrices are determinant are mostly unescapable. There's no way you can just dodge them in the exam. They will feature one way or the other, in which you can be looking at a means of looking for an unknown, even in indeterminants. Or sometimes you may even be asked to find the determinant of 3 by 3 matrix, and then there is a guide on how to go about solving them. You don't need to worry. We have past questions that we have treated on all of this. In short, all questions for each year for JAMB that we featured on our channel, you can check out that link in the description and you have access to them, so that all of this, you are going to actually find a means of solving them, of mastering them. Even if you are weak in any one of them, then you can go through our playlist, go through our videos, and you can master them and face your exam with all boldness and with full assurance that you are going to make this your year of excellence, okay? Now, sometimes they will express matrices like this, and they will ask you to find x and y. Okay, now this inherently is just an expression for a simultaneous equation in which you are multiplying row by column. So this is like you are saying 5x minus 6y is equal to 7, or 2x minus 7y is equal to minus 11. So you can solve by simultaneous equation, or you can even do multiplication of matrices. Like here, you can just say you are pre-multiplying both by the inverse of this first matrix. So that inverse and this matrix, they will give you a unit matrix, and unit matrix is just like 1. That is for the left hand side. If you are multiplying, you are pre-multiplying on the right hand side, then you can do your row and column, and then you get the answer out for your x and y by multiplying the inverse of this with this particular right hand matrix. All right, so those are the features of matrices, and you'll be good to go with all the topics that are featured on Algebra. Okay, and then next we can move on to geometry and trigonometry. Now in geometry and trigonometry, the very first thing that we need to know is the Euclidean geometry, and that will include you understanding the properties of angles and lines, polygons, just generally triangles, quadrilaterals, and others. Then circles, the properties of circles, cyclic quadrilaterals, the circle theorems, and some bit of construction. Like you can see here, now you need to understand how the interaction of parallel lines, how they are, and the angles that are included with them. Some of angles of a polygon, the interior angles, you need to know. You need to understand your circle theorems. You need to know all those circle theorems so that you can apply them in solving questions when you face them. And then very, very rarely, but just once in a while, your understanding is more of your understanding. Nobody will ask you to construct, because it's even computer-based test and it's OBJ, it's objective test paper. So, but you just need to understand some little construction and you'll be good. Now, talking about measuration, still under geometry and trigonometry, you need to know length, areas of some figures, length of arcs, chords of circle, perimeters, total surface area, volume, and then some bit of longitude and latitude. Not too common, but yes, they do feature. And even for the volumes and co, sometimes you can have composite shapes in which you need to look at the addition of the volume of each one of them. And sometimes you can have shaded areas in which you may need to add or subtract some other area of shapes for you to get them appropriately. Okay, and then in loci, you need to understand what is the locus of some points as defined whenever they are featured. Our past questions are going to feature all that, and you will see them and you'll be able to master them appropriately. Coordinate geometry is very, very interesting. You can't miss this question too, in which you need to note and understand the equation of a line, how you can get, perhaps you have some 2 points, how you can find distance between points, how you can find parallel and perpendicular lines. Like here, you have, when you have parallel lines, their slope, their gradient is always the same. So M1 is M3. But if you have another line perpendicular to them, then the product of those slopes, M1 and M2, will be -1. Okay, you need to know how to get the gradient, which is differences in the y coordinate over differences in the x coordinate, and you also need to know how to use that to get the equation of a line. So those are very, very insightful things that you need to know when it comes to coordinate geometry. Now, finally, on geometry and trigonometry comes trigonometry itself, and there's no way you can miss this. This is one area you need to actually work so much on, because it's a sure banker. You are going to meet with it. You need to understand your Pythagoras theorem, okay, your trigonometry identity, SOHCAHTOA, areas of triangles. You need to know how to apply basic sine and cosine rule as featured there. You need to know the angles of elevation and depression. You need to know trigonometric graph, just once in a while that they feature them. But all of these, they come under trigonometry, and your mastery of these particular topics is going to help you to scale that exam wonderfully well as appropriate. And here we come to calculus, okay? And in calculus, you need to be able to find, they include a limit of a function, but it's rare for you to see questions on limits. But generally, you need to know how to differentiate explicit algebraic and simple functions, okay? And then some simple trigonometric function has been shown here. You need to know how to evaluate them. And the same thing with integration. You need to know simple explicit algebraic expressions, how to find their integration. Then simple trigonometric functions, how to also find their integration. But then for integration, you also need to know the area under a graph, okay? That graph will be bounded Like here, it is bounded at point A and point B. So the area under the curve will be the integral value of that function, taking the boundary A and B as consideration. That means that after you integrate, you need to put in the value of A and subtract it from what you get from the value of B interpolated in it, and you get the area under the graph. Now, these are actually the basis for the differentiation and integration, but the application of differentiation is one area I know students normally do find challenging, and we are going to look at that right now. The areas that they generally test students on applications of differentiations include the maximum and the minimum value. Okay, and for your maximum value, the second derivative should always be less than 0, whereas for the minimum value, the second derivative should be greater than 0. So those are means of testing. What you need to do is to find the derivative and equate it to 0. Normally, it always appears as a quadratic function. So if you differentiate that quadratic function, you will get a linear function. That linear function will be of the order y is equal to mx plus c on co. And then you can equate that to 0, solve for x, and then to find the maximum or minimum value, which is y, you put that value of x back into the original equation to get the value of y. Okay, so that's one application of differentiation that they feature it quite often. They feature it a lot. Another one is the rate of change of volume with respect to radius, just rate of change generally, okay, in which once you know the particular equation that you are looking for, you only need to know what they are finding the differential value with respect to. Like here in this case, the rate of change of volume with respect to radius will mean that you differentiate with respect to r, and then you can input the value of r. Maybe they ask at a particular point, you can input the value of r, and you will get your solution out and find. Now, this other case is a case in which you are given a particular function and a polynomial function, and you will be asked to find the normal at a particular point. So, you don't need to be scared. All you need to take is that particular polynomial function, like here, the function y, then solve for dy dx is equal to 0. That will give you a value of x, okay? And then in that value of x, it can help you to get the tangent, because normally if you solve, you are going to find y is equal to mx plus c, something in that order. That m, the coefficient of that x, is going to be the slope of the tangent. And then from our understanding of coordinate geometry, we know that the normal to that tangent will carry the negative of the inverse of that slope. So you just need to use that, and you can get out the equation of the normal as appropriate, okay? Don't worry, if you need insight into all of this, just check with our videos that we have shared and we'll still continue to share, and you see a whole number of examples on this that can help you to master this as appropriate. And now here in statistics, the very first thing you're expected to know is the representation of data. And when you are representing data, it can come in various forms, maybe in bar chart, histogram, ogive, pie chart, just as featured here. Then you need to know how to interpret each of these diagrams, whichever one is coming to you in the exam. You need to know how to interpret it. Like, one thing they normally like to ask on the cumulative frequency curve is to say, okay, what is the 50th percentile? And then you need to look at half of your cumulative frequency. Like here is a bit above 50. Maybe you look at something like 26, 27. You trace, and then you trace back down to get the appropriate mark scored for that frequency range, okay? So you need to know how to interpret it. Maybe in this particular type of question, they'll be asking you how many students score some particular marks. So you need to read the graph and appropriately get that out. In pie chart, you also need to have representation and how you can scale it to 360, and then you can get some percentages out. Whatever as they are requesting from the question, you'll be good to go. And then in measures of location, that means you are talking about the mean, the median, and the mode, both of grouped and ungrouped data, okay? But most of the time, they normally feature ungrouped data. So you can find your mean as the sum of the frequency multiplied by each of the data entry over the sum of the frequency. In median, you just need to order sequentially in ascending order, or you can also do descending order, but generally students do ascending order, and then you can pick the middle data value. And now in measures of dispersion, you may be asked to find the range, the mean deviation, the variance, and the standard deviation. What they mostly ask is the mean deviation, but that does not stop you to also look at variance and standard deviation. You just need to know that when you are working with mean deviation, you are making use of the absolute value of the difference between each data set and the mean, okay? But when you are working with variance, it's actually the square of the difference between the data entry and the mean. And then standard deviation is actually the square root of the variance, okay? And then when it comes to permutation and combination, you just need to understand that when you're talking about permutation, you're talking about a case in which order is of priority, is of importance. Maybe they are saying that a particular person and a particular person of a necessity, they must sit together, or they want to pick a committee and maybe a man must be in the committee. So they already put in the condition that the order is very, very important. When it comes to combination, they are not neglecting the order, and this is the formula that you use for each one of them. Then if you're having a cyclic order, the number of arrangement that you can have in that case is n minus 1 factorial, where n is the number of entries that you are looking at. And then on probability, because the formula for probability is your desired outcome over the number of your possible outcomes. And sometimes they feature questions in which you are featuring combination of conditions, like you are throwing 2 die and they are asking for what the probability of getting even numbers. So you need to do a truth set table in which you have your number for the one die, your number for the other die, and you are looking at, okay, where are the areas that are going to feature even numbers for the two of them. Then you count out the number, divide by the total possible outcome, and then you get your probability out and find. So here is a histogram of all that we have been talking about, featuring the past decade and the questions that JAMB are featuring in their mathematics. So in the first case, number-based, fractions, approximations, simple interest, percentages, indices, just as listed here. And this is the highlight of how they are featured. So already you are seeing that, for example, Euclidean geometry is featuring so much, so you need to actually master your Euclidean geometry. You cannot joke with fractions, approximations, simple interest, and percentages, okay? You can also see the measures of location, those representation of data, mean, median, and mode, okay? You need to actually find a very good graphs of them before you face your exam. Mensuration is quite high too. Polynomials, change of subject or formula, factor theorem, remainder theorem. And if I will just show you a highlight, you can see here, these are the Hodge region that you need to focus on. So capture this, use it as a guide for you to actually go through what you still need to cover, so that you know that at least the highest occurring questions in JAMB, I'm set to face them, I'm set to work with them, and no matter what is going to happen, I know that I have a high probability of solving most of my questions because I've actually practiced and prepared with them in mind. These are the tips and the tricks that can really help you to go out there and you are going as an informed student. You are not just going without knowing what you are going to face. Already you've done your due diligence, and this particular exercise that we are doing for this mathematics in JAMB, you can do for your other subjects. Take them out, just take time, dedicate some 3 hours in a particular day, and just want to list out the topics that are featured in the syllabus, list out the questions that they are being featured, and then go back, look at, okay, this area, this is a sure banker, I'm seeing it every time, so definitely I must prepare for it. And want to trust that with God on your side, with all the diligence that you are putting in place, this is going to be of great benefit to you, and that admission you are going to gain to the glory of God. So that is the whole scope of what JAMB is expecting of you to know, to understand, to master when it comes to the mathematics exam as featured by JAMB. Now, if you are having any issue with any of these topics that we have mentioned, go through our playlist. We have playlists on each of the topics. We also have playlists that are only featuring the whole exam per year. So go through them, walk through the examples, master all of this so that you can prep yourself for excellence in the coming exam. We want to believe that this video has been useful for you. So if that is the case, just give us a thumbs up, leave a like for us, and then if you have any observation you want to draw our attention to, go ahead, drop your comment in the comment section. You want to tell us that, oh, we should have done this, we should have done this. We read all your comments, and we will provide feedback as appropriate, okay? And this we are doing so that we'll know what we can do better, what we can actually stop doing if it's not helping, and then together we can gain that aim that we have set out to do of academic excellence. It's been a wonderful journey. I want to thank you for watching up to this point. It's Davetuts Academy, and until next time, God bless you.